Welcome to the Health Conscious Living podcast. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, and my special guest today is Nick Sinanan. He's a global charity matchmaker, raising millions of dollars for health and human services organizations around the globe. He's considered Wall Street's leading peak performance strategist, helping leaders who are pivot ready, especially during times of uncertainty. He's an international keynote speaker and global citizen. Nick is a best-selling author, board-certified sports scientist with numerous scientific publications, and the founder of the Magic 11 Method. He has interviewed several thousand next-generation leaders on performance and delivered keynotes on humanity, authentic leadership, and created transformational courses and masterminds. He's the proud dad of 2 wonderful children, as well as 65 godchildren on 5 continents. Nick is part of the global Rotarian family and is currently serving as the president of the Rotary E-Club of Wall Street, New York City. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Gayle, for your invitation. I feel truly blessed.
Thank you. Well, welcome. And you have such an amazing story. Tell us about yourself and your healing journey.
Yes, absolutely. Because sometimes we all know life goes sideways. So you have an idea. My parents are very attracted to the elite sports world. From very early age, they took me, I remember, from pictures, of course, when I was 2 years old. They took me to the Munich Olympics in '72, and I wore this Olympic Munich t-shirt. And so my dad told me about all the athletes, and my dad, he originates from Trinidad and Tobago, 2 small islands in the Caribbean, with pretty high talented sprinters, soccer players, cricket players, you name it. And so he shared his pride with me. So that stick into my head. And then my aha moment was just 4 years after. I was 6, was sitting next to my dad in Montreal. And there was this gentleman, Bruce Jenner, considered as the king of athletics. So he won the gold medal in decathlon. And at this moment, I said, okay, definitely right now, I know that's gonna be my mission at the age of 6. And then moving forward, I started my sport career. Let's say I had amazing mentors. I was born and grew up in Germany, and my first and most important mentor was Daley Thompson in the 80s. He was the world record holder in decathlon, and he taught me a lot about what's going on here on mind level to be able to execute what you have to do to become a champion on a daily level. So it's day in, day out, and we all know there are good days, there are not so good days. And so I was totally focused. So my teachers, they weren't so happy because my focus really was, okay, definitely Daley Thompson and Bruce Jenner were my role models. So I was on a path, I was on a mission, and my dad supported me very, very strong. And from early age, of course, I trained very hard. I experienced lots of injuries, but that's life. So, and I realized how to cope with that. So, and decathlon is an amazing example, let's say, even for life. So let's say you struggle from an injury like hamstring injury. I had several, and I was told, okay, even the case you're injured doesn't mean the 95% of your body who aren't injured are not able to train. And this speeds up the recovery. And then the concept in the late 80s came up, so-called cross-training. So, and this really opened another world for me, because talking about trauma or healing, if you consider yourself you're traumatized or you're down, you need to really find the light at the end of the tunnel, the part that is not traumatized or injured. And of course, sometimes, as in sport, and I take this analogy, in sports, you have a coach, a mentor. In our field, we have a professional in mental health, for example. And so I was on my mission, and it was lucky, fast forward. So I qualified for the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, and I was really thriving. I was in the best shape of my life. And so then in 1st of May, I woke up in hospital, and I was told how lucky I was that I survived a severe bike crash. And I was told if everything would work out well, I would make it to the Olympics as a spectator. And for me, I couldn't believe what they were saying, because I said, okay, why should I go there as a spectator? I'm qualified for an athlete. I'm thriving. And so then they told me, so my brain injury was so severe that I really had to think about if thinking about the next Olympics in 2000, 4 years later, I might have to pivot to change discipline, because decathlon is the most complex event in track and field, technically. And so I said, okay, I will start my rehab, because quitting was no option. And so I started my rehab. I detrained. I lost about 40 pounds of muscle mass. And my coach came up with the idea, the 2000 Olympics will have the Olympic triathlon for the first time in history. And for me, it was a very strange feeling, because being a decathlete and thinking about something like a triathlon is like taking a sprinter like Usain Bolt and tell him you should run the New York Marathon and try to give your best, because it's got nothing to do the one with another. And so it really took some time, but I said, okay, I'm all in. I will train for that. It worked out. And so then, talking about trauma, life really hit hard again. What I didn't mention when I was in hospital, after realizing how lucky I was, I remembered my parents, because my parents put me on a path of really giving back. You mentioned in the beginning that I'm the proud dad of two wonderful children, and thanks to my parents, because whatever I remember from every holiday, every birthday, they ask us, you have a sister as well, they ask us, okay, what should we do? What should we contribute? This is the reason why I do have 65 godchildren on 5 continents, thanks to my parents, who passed away at the end of last year. But I'm perhaps later on I share a little bit about this story, because for me right now, of course, I'm still in grief, but it's a process in life as well.
I'm sorry for your loss and
Yeah.
your healing.
Yeah, thank you so much. As I shared with you earlier, there's no coincidence in life, and if you are able to, like Steve Jobs, for example, said so beautifully, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And so talking about giving back, so when I realized how lucky I was in 1st of May 96 that I survived, I remembered what my parents, the path they put me onto. And since then, I'm really giving back on a large level. You mentioned this and shared this in the beginning. And for me, I discovered over the years why I'm doing what I'm doing, the way I'm doing it. And then preparing for the 2000 Olympics, we had an amazing team, because, every 4 years, okay, in the last Olympics, due to the pandemic, it was 5 years period for the athletes to prepare. But normally it's a 4-year window, and you sacrifice time, energy, sweat and blood, let's say. And we had an amazing, we had an amazing group of athletes focused on the games. And so today is November 11, and 11 follows me through all my life. And 11, for example, in some of the historical documents, the number 11 is considered with chaos, with disorder, and the number related to my birth is the number 4. So the number 4 stands for completion. So we have the hemisphere, etc. And so I learned over the years to really combine the number 11, which follows me through many of my many of my lessons, and even the book I'm writing right now is related to the number 11. And so I was taught to take this 11, so the metaphor for chaos, and transform it into the number 4, which is harmony. And so talking about the athletes, we've been 11 athletes in preparation for the 2000 Olympics, and we spent the winter in Bali training day in and day out. And so we've been so close together, and one morning we did stupid exercise. Athletes do stupid things to really set their boundaries or test their boundaries. So we try to hold our breath while being underwater, and we've been quite good at these. You have these professional divers, for example. It's amazing what they do, because it has to do with relaxation. You need to be in sync. And so, for example, talking about Wim Hof, he developed a certain cold exposure routine. He developed a certain breath work. And so we worked with that. And so we had our best friend going through this exercise. So she went out into shallow water. She held her breath, but she didn't appear anymore. And so, first of all, we were amazed. Whatever she did, we were not able, after realizing, okay, our guts just said, okay, something went wrong, but we couldn't find her. So we were looking for her a long time. Then we realized, okay, it's either a joke. So she just took whatever the current and then went to another bay. But when the sun set, we realized, okay, we call the police. And so the police couldn't help. So then we took all our belongings, went to our house. And so we found a letter telling us that she preferred us as her family in comparison to her own family parents. So she took her life in front of us. And so that was not only mine, but for the whole team, the point to really question what we really do. Is there a bigger why? And so I felt helpless. And on the same time, I was basically the spokesperson for us 11, even really traumatized. And talking about coincidences, I was looking for answers, and I was connected to Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins in 2000, he connected me with at this time, top experts in PTSD. And the first lesson he shared, and all the experts shared, we can only see, even while talking to you, I can only see what you show to me. And if I would take the responsibility for your pain, then it might be my problem and my pain as well. So even talking about my children or my godchildren or anyone I worked with over the time I work in, this was my lessons learned, and it worked out pretty well. Talking about pivoting, I will come to this in a second. That was my aha moment, that whatever I want to do, if I want to mentor or coach someone, I can only share my knowledge or my wisdom if we start on really eye level, because otherwise it's a waste of time, resource, money, whatever you want to call it. And So I think I was told this is one of the key qualities about the outcome of my coaching mentoring, because after this loss in 99, I had another accident, so I was not able to attend the Olympics in 2000 as an athlete, but I pivoted. So I became a sought after mentor and coach for athletes on their way to the Olympics. And so I spent 25 plus years doing this, helping athletes to bring their peak performance on game day. And so, yeah, that was basically my biggest lesson.
Your morning laziness article, you make the statement, and I've talked about this in an earlier podcast episode, we're spiritual beings having a human experience to learn, grow, and gain wisdom and share our gifts. And you certainly have done that. And it's amazing, like you said, with Steve Jobs. We love that quote. You can only connect the dots looking backward. And if you, as you look backward, all those dots connected you on your soul's path as you are sharing your amazing gifts with the world and teaching us how you take trauma and you heal and you pivot into something greater and the greater version of yourself. And you certainly embody that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Amazing. So tell us about your 11 method, your magic 11 method. I'm curious.
So the 11 method, basically through my athletes, because I was, unfortunately, in university, we get lots of wisdom or science or data really dumped into our heads. I realized, and you're an MD as well, so I was listening and always fascinated by all the knowledge and numbers which are able to make you better, faster, stronger. And I realized from very early time at university that the concept changed quite regularly, no matter if it's nutrition, relaxation. Let's talk about a diet. So we know in the US there was the no fat, and right now there is the no carb, then there is the keto, etc., etc. And what we've seen, let's say in the pandemic, in all developed countries, we have a huge pandemic in terms of obesity. All these so-called five-headed dragons, starting with cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes in even kids, meanwhile, heart disease. And going back to research right now, of course, physicians ask about the family history when whatever incidents occur, which is okay. But what I learned that lifestyle is so much more responsible for the outcome. So the Magic 11 came basically from listening to my clients, athletes. I never considered them patients, even though they came in and believed they were patients because they were injured, they were traumatized, etc. But that was the first switch I pivoted. I said, okay, if you consider yourself as a patient, in my case, you're a client. So, and this changed their perspective. They look at me with open eyes because they were told they're patients. But so 11 seconds starts, of course, and we live in a fast-paced society. So I even take this approach with children in kindergarten. We start with going back with breathing. What I shared with the trauma I went through. I start with kids, and even kids who have challenges with their respiratory system. And we go like, our goal is, are you able to hold your breath for 11 seconds? So that is one first component, no matter if it's kid or if it's an athlete or if it's an adult or a burnout executive. So, and this works well because I do have lots of clients who say, I don't have time for all these. I know my lifestyle isn't healthy, but I break it down to 11 seconds. And as soon as they are able to do a certain, let's say, intervention, like, are you able to hold your breath for 11 seconds? Are you able to inhale for 11 seconds? Are you able to exhale for 11 seconds? And then what happens, and you as an MD, you know what I'm talking about, it plays on your parasympathetic nervous system. And so this is the kickoff of the 11 seconds. And we did lots of research. Let's say both of us would go to a brain scan right now, and we do a meditation, or we do a deep breathing, we do a visualization, and we have our brain scanned. Within the 11 seconds, there is really magic going on in our brain. And this is why what I was told from my clients, it really shifts the whole concept of a therapeutic intervention. If time permits, I share a little bit on a global charity I took over in 2019, helping traumatized refugees to overcome their trauma. And so this concept works just so beautifully because the time component is outside of the game, because clients tell me, I don't have time for a healthy lifestyle. Nick, it's so easy for you. Gayle, it's so easy for you because you have this or that background. And I remember you shared your background on your story with me. So grateful for this as well, and our connection. And so I take away this timely component. I don't have time because of my busy whatever I do. And this is why it really comes down to the 11 seconds. And this opens the door for any kind of, and then we pick the components we need for this moment. And no matter if it's kids, and it works amazing with kids, talking about hyperactive kids, or we just briefly talked about in our intro before the camera was on, about a lady who was told you could never play sports because you're obese, etc. And so this Magic 11 really starts making heroes from people or kids who were told or programmed a certain way. And this is why I'm so happy. You can break it down scientifically, but when starting with this number one component, which starts with breathing, because everything we do is related to the oxygen we have in our brain. And it doesn't make us lazy, or if we put oxygen into our system.
No, because it totally resets, brings the sympathetic nervous system down, the fight or flight, and then parasympathetic up, and helps us to come into the forebrain that's in present time and can be creative and have higher order thinking. And I think it's brilliant. I love it.
And it's easy. It's really kindergarten. So each kid knows, and I did it with my kids as well when they were babies. So we did funny things, like I do have a daughter and a son, and I think you remember. So talking about deep breathing. So I worked with lots of female athletes, and whenever I said, okay, make sure you breathe deep into your belly, they tuck their belly in, because from a certain age, ladies are told you need to tuck your belly in. And so, for example, with my kids, with my daughter, we did the big belly exercise. So I don't have a big belly, but of course I can breathe deep in my belly. And if you realize these things, and so it all comes down to really play with your breathing, and then you have access to everything, the whole, let's say, pharmacy we have in our body. You're talking about self-healing, and I'm still amazed each and every day what our body is capable of, even especially during the time of, let's say, the pandemic, the last 3 years, where we were told, okay, don't do that, do this. And
I've been on a mission since the pandemic, but really since the pandemic, to educate people about lifestyle health habits, which is the big part of what Health Conscious Living podcast is about, because it's very close to 80% of our immunity. And so the body is designed to be healthy. It's designed to be in balance. And what I love about the 11 method is that it takes the excuse out of it, and it's fun, and even if we are in a, 7-second attention span these days, that's close enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because that was the biggest obstacle I was told through my clients. We don't have the time. We have the knowledge, but we don't have the time. We have the money. So I was going like, yeah, I was in a rut as well on peak performance. And I was going like, if I do have the time, I come back, but sometimes we have to pay the price, and then we're smarter afterwards.
So what were your results? I'm curious when they started realizing that, yeah, it's only 11 seconds. Whoa, I don't need that. I can do this and this and this. And they start changing up because it's so empowering. It takes it from out there to here.
Absolutely. And it's quite diverse. You mentioned in the beginning, my first invitation to Wall Street. I do have a connection to Wall Street. 26 years ago, I was invited to go there to help clients with his business to become registered as a company, to have his logo and to be able to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. So I help him and his team of amazing executives to perform at their best on corporate level. And the results are very different because I was asked to do in the beginning to the early 2000s, I was asked to do a scientific research, a scientific study, which was at this time called a gender-specific burnout prehab or work-life balance. And we all know, okay, work-life balance still gives pain in my gut. And we all know, so you're a lady and you might know there is no one size fits all model, because the idea was, okay, let's say talking about work-life balance or burnout prehab, so male should do this kind of, let's say, exercise, and the ladies do yoga, for example. So it might work for some, perhaps for others, it might be boxing, it might be something else. So, and this, I realized this during the pilot study. I said, okay, talking about LGBTQ or whatever we talk about right now, there is no one size fits all. We're all individuals. And talking about the results, what happens during the first, let's say, 1, 2, 3 cycles of 11 seconds, you hold your breath, you inhale, you exhale. And for some, it's a struggle to be able to inhale for 11 seconds. And so then it opens up what they're capable, because they had no idea. We're not taught in school, because let's say if we would go to a certain type of school, a monk school in Tibet, for example, their first lesson as kids is breathing. It's not math, it's not writing, it's breathing. So they focus on breathing. And as I said earlier, so oxygen in our body is just the magic formula. Okay, the Chinese talk about qi, and Buddhism talks about prana, etc. But it's the essence. So, and if we're able to play with that and shift it to certain areas in our body, which ask for our attention because there is pain, there is ailment, there is trauma, for example, then we really have the magic formula. And so clients react very differently. So some, let's say, high profile A-type, alpha type male, they have tears in their eyes when they realize they're able to take the time that they're able to breathe in, to inhale for 11 seconds. Same for ladies. And then this is really the magical moment. Then they open up, because let's say the right formula for me would be transcendental meditation. And the concept, because we have an idea in our subconscious what it might be, because we read about it, we had a podcast about it, and we come down, okay, sounds interesting because all the Hollywood actors do this to be in the role, be in the flow, and memorize all these amazing lines they have to remember to be in this role. But the concept is way too time consuming. And this is why I never ever mention beforehand what might be the instruments afterwards, because this is the reason why I said, okay, I listen in what happens during the first, second, and third cycle of the 11 seconds, and then we decide what we do. Is it nutrition? Should we check your kitchen? Because talking about, for example, it's the same thing, and I heard it over and over, even from elite athletes who, because of, let's say, injuries, they had to cut down their exercise and they gain weight, and they're going like, okay, what's the best exercise? So the best exercise is and always was in your kitchen. So whatever you do, because you're not out of 24 hours in a day, if what you do in your kitchen is, let's say, not in line with the rest of what you do, then there's no need. It's coming back to where we met. It might be the cherry on the cake to do the right exercise when the kitchen is in alignment.
Yes. Well, it's brilliant because it reveals, in those 11 seconds, it reveals who they are, what they need, what their next step is. And they're so validated. So it really, that's beautiful. So how did
the nice thing, one more thing, the nice thing is, even though, so I'm a scientist, I'm a sports scientist, I always used to ask the question, why is that? Even though I spent 3 terms in China doing scientific research on sport injuries before the 2000s. And I always ask the question, okay, why do you take these certain points for acupuncture and acupressure? And my supervising professor always going like, okay, Nick, why do you ask this? Because it worked for 3,500 years. They not question if there might be any better component or combination. That was my Western way of thinking. And so this is just the beauty for those like me. You can see in brain scans what happens during the 11 seconds, and this is so amazing to me. We in your case, I'm sure you feel it if I would walk you through a session, or you can even do it on your own. If I explain it to my kids, they do it on their own, and then I listen what happens. They see colors, they feel whatever so it's so beautiful.
It also is the connection of the breath to spirit within, really accessing the inner wisdom, the inner light. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So, Nick, how did you move from there into your next authorship, which is what you're working on now, your book?
The funny thing is, I think I was writing all my life since I took the first pen and draw some sketches. I was always fascinated to take notes and listen to, let's say, wise people out there. I was blessed to, even through my parents, they connected me with some really important influential people in philanthropy. So I had the pleasure to support Sir Richard Branson on a charity for cancer research, UK. I connected, talking about coincidence. I met a wonderful human soul, Deepak Chopra, because we shared the same yoga teacher, and we looked at each other and said, okay, we're pretty good at what we are doing, but yoga is not, we could not be the top world let's say, teacher in this field, but it changed. So there were many coincidences. I listened to Nelson Mandela, for example, sharing the power of sport. And so I was always really taking notes for myself in the beginning to get my performance to another level. And then, of course, learning tools, tactics, let's say from someone like Tony Robbins to help my athletes. Or 25 years ago, I learned about how to identify body language, because our body never lies. So whatever we put out there, if it's not in line with what we're doing with our hands, and even in Zoom, let's say the last 3 years, where the whole world translated into virtual meetings, if you're trained to read body language, it shouts very loud if the person you're listening to tells their truth or not, let's say. So that was the beauty. I was always curious. I took each and every, let's say, injury to learn why did it occur, and was not looking for the spiritual reason, but to really prevent another injury because of the same reason. Let's say, coming back to nutrition, each injury when I was a teenager, I really dug deep into nutrition. I was going like, okay, I want to learn what happens. Why do I have this hamstring strain right now? And so I do have, I think, like each and every one of us has so many books already in their head, and it's just a question. And coming back to what I shared earlier about my parents, I am nominated to receive a Peace and a Humanity Award next year. And so this is the reason why I said, okay, I need to write this book on humanity, because this is basically what I'm doing for 26 years without realizing that people out there say, wow, Nick, whatever you do, the way you're doing it, you do it differently and it works. And so, as I said, for 26 years, I'm giving back, because I'm happy that you and I are able to talk, and I feel beyond grateful for your invitation to your podcast. And so this is why even last year and the year before, it was planned to have another book written. But of course, I took the time to assist and help my parents during their journey they were onto. And this is why I'm so happy they're both with me, and I'm happy for both of them where they are. And yeah, so I'm writing for a long time.
Well, congratulations on your award. Well deserved, no doubt. As we finish up, what 3 things would you like to share with the audience? What 3 take homes?
For everyone listening in or watching, it took a while, especially for, let's say, males, to really connect with your true self, to allow yourself to be vulnerable, because then, and this is for me what I've seen, this is the true magic. And I teach it to my son, for example, because I wasn't trained to show my, let's say, weaknesses. And so definitely in this case, for every male listening in, this is such a blessing. So be courageous enough to listen in, closing your eye, focus on your breath, and share with Gayle what it feels like, what comes up. So this would be, and of course for all ladies out there, please do so as well. And so that would be the number 1. And number 2 is talking about our fast-paced society. Take another breath. Sometimes we need to take a step back to see the bigger picture, because in my case, and I listen to many people out there, or many authors who write books, and when they share their why, it was because of a certain incident or an accident. Certain times in your life, you can put it in your calendar. If you take a step back on a daily basis, or a weekly basis, or a monthly basis, then you have the bigger picture. talking about growth, for example. So if you want to grow, and we're all here to grow, like all plants out there. And so that's the next magic, taking a step back. Sometimes we need to take out the speed to be able to accelerate afterwards. It would be
the pause.
Yeah. So that's number 2. So number 3, share the love. That is the biggest power. I remember the event where both of us met. We had a speaker, amazing female speaker. She talked about the basic human needs, which Tony Robbins talks about. And the most powerful one, and this is what I'm doing for 26 years, is giving back, is contribute. And the funny thing is, I shared it in another interview. People were talking about during the pandemic, we don't have the money to really give. We do when we're back to normal, let's say. And I've seen the beauty during the 2020, 2021. Americans gave the highest amount to charity they ever did, even during the pandemic, because it's a two-way street. So you can even break it down for me as a scientist, what happens with your hormones when you're giving back. So the dopamine kicks in when you do good and not asking about. So I would love to consider this, which way you could contribute. And if it's not money, then it's your time.
I wrote a quote that you gave in Morning Laziness that I absolutely love. Working with Tony Robbins as your most influential mentor, you said, I learned so much about false or limiting beliefs, such as money can't buy happiness. And you quoted, it truly can if you give it to people in need.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for this interview. What a pleasure. Nick, how can people follow you and about your upcoming book?
It's very easy. Follow me on social media. You can find my name, which is a quite unique name on this planet. And so you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook. And just very currently I've started a TikTok that's just to see what it's like. So it's lots of fun. So I would love to read what you feel. I would love to see what you experience doing the Magic 11. And Gayle, as I said, I'm beyond grateful for our connection, and thanks for the invitation so much.
Thank you. And we will put your connections in the show notes. Thank you again.
Thank you.